Welcome to the secret live stream. In this live stream, we are going to be talking about soulless consciousness, NPCs, non-player characters, background people, backdrop people. That's what we're talking about. Because indeed, this is a pillar of truth that shall aid all living souls in realizing who you are and where you are. Now, at first glance, the idea of non-player characters might seem like it's full of division and separation, right? Well, is it up to us to deem who is real and who is not? Not necessarily, but you must understand as a living soul that you are in the realm of the dead. Not because you're dead, but because you're here to observe all of the aspects of yourself that are deadened. Hello to all brothers and sisters, all living souls. It's becoming more and more apparent that we are living in a simulated experience in which we have simply been walking around our own sub and unconscious. This is your own mind you're walking through. Therefore, everything that is not deemed of ease, of truth, of love, of wisdom, that must be distinct from your true essence. And what is your true essence? It's undefinable because it's beyond good and evil. It's beyond that tension that good versus evil creates. When we're talking about soulless beings, non-player characters, we're talking about a few things. One, we're talking about filler beings who are required in order to create an experience for the living souls. Because, of course, if it was only the living souls here, we wouldn't be able to shed what we can't carry over into the original blueprint. And then two, they are binary consciousness incarnate. They are projected versions of you, of I, of all of us, even though they seem distinct and separate. And that is why this is not a dualistic concept, because we are not suggesting that a soulless being is wrong or evil or bad or something to be attacked or to be intertwined with on that level of accusation. What I'm saying is everything you're not has expressed itself from the inner into the outer. You literally push everything that you wish to release onto the grid. And in order to play out that binary consciousness automatically, you must basically create these non-player characters who receive those inverted versions of yourself. And that's why the more you wake up, the more robotic everything around you seems. It's not because there is an issue with humanity. It's not because there's an issue with this earth. This is why we talk about NPCs, because if you wish to maintain that everyone is eternal consciousness, that everyone has the same soul or everyone has the same quality of experience, then we can fall into the trappings of Maya, because this is Maya. You think you're seeing a bunch of beings who are just like you, but what they are is really the magic mirror reflection of you. So we've said this before. You walk into a fun house, you go in front of one of those magic mirrors, one of those little twisty mirrors, and it kind of looks like you, but not really. It's a warped version of yourself. And of course, what has pained many of us during this experience in purgatory is the proclamation or question, why won't anybody wake up? Right? Here I am, I'm going through this huge unveiling process within myself, and it feels incredibly significant. And yet I can't get anybody else to wake up in the capacity that I do. And so it's beneficial to realize absolutely not. It's not your role to wake others up, and how others act is not a measurement of who you are. Isn't this the purpose of recognizing soulless consciousness versus souled consciousness? It's not because we wish to create a hierarchy. It's because if you identify with the external in such a way that it affects how you perceive the self, then, well, that's obviously a test in that circumstance you haven't passed. So the whole point of this realm is to disconnect from all external narratives, all external archetypes and stereotypes played out by this soulless consciousness, and erect the true self and say, you know what? I am worthy. I am the living soul, and nothing on the outer and nothing anybody says will ever deter me from my true path. You see, the NPCs don't have this. The NPCs only replicate the essence of the living souls. Keep in mind, everybody, an NPC is not simply one who is eating pizza and watching the news and buying into that mainstream narrative. That's not what we're talking about. It's not about their beliefs. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not about what they choose to align with. It's underlying their words, their actions, their being is an automated binary consciousness that can only split reality into opposing halves of good and evil, of light and dark, of right and wrong. There is no capacity for the NPCs to truly understand that it is that split which creates this specific reality. Why? Because this specific reality is tethered to the experience of the NPCs. Because, of course, the beings you project in your dreams, you can't carry them over once you wake up. I mean, you'll have some lingering ideas or thoughts, maybe if you recall your dreams, but that's the point. The living souls exist outside of time, outside of this particular space, and therefore we are not tethered to the earth because we are of the heart. And the earth, as we've said, it's a rearranging of the heart. It's just an overlay you've been on. Now, we project binary consciousness because we are aiming to resolve good versus evil, and the only way we can actually resolve it is by observing it and experiencing how that separation consciousness plays out in our own lives. We experience the turmoil, the frustration, and just the inauthenticity of such a split. So where most of the living souls are at now is we recognize that's no way to be, that's no way to perceive existence, and we don't even need that kind of split. Why would we need to fragmentize reality and then pit those two sides against each other? You see, but that is what we find within the consciousness of the soulless beings. Now, because we projected them, for a long time, we just observed them as completely unwavering in what and who they were. However, the more we've reclaimed our divinity, the more we have awoken to this dream, the more we have literally reincorporated the fragmentized energy that we projected to create them. Our energy can only be extracted when we consent to it. So we've called this the energy extraction matrix because the soulless beings and culture and everything that we perceive as of this world is the result of you not knowing yourself. And that energy, because it can't be destroyed, it transfers from the inner to the outer until you're able to reclaim that. And we have been reclaiming it. So what happens when we reclaim it? We literally take back the energy that was put onto the grid and used by these soulless beings. And when we reclaim it, what are we left with? We are left with robotic consciousness. And this is why more and more, minute after minute, right now, hour after hour, day after day, you will observe your surroundings, strangers, family, friends, old relatives, best friends, coworkers, acting as if they are on a circuit, because they are. You shall observe, absolutely, this is binary consciousness in front of me, right? So that's the whole gist of soulless beings. Now, I recently made a video with a few pointers as to how to recognize an NPC. And really, guys, it's very simple, okay? First of all, in dualism, it's difficult to recognize who others are and who we are. So the split between good versus evil never produces truth. So once we step away from dualism, right? Not wishing to call people evil or wrong or unspiritual or impure. Okay, once we can move away from those definitions, it's only then we can actually approach this topic of NPCs with some sensibility. So it's very easy to actually tell with open eyes who's an NPC. One, they can only view things from that binary lens. Again, they are purged aspects of separation consciousness. When we're talking about NPCs within the spiritual community, we're talking about beings who can only view spirituality through the lens of what's moral, what's immoral, what is deemed righteous by the universe or God, or what's deemed damned. The adherence to physical practices like prayer or meditation or yoga or, even divination or getting into astrology. The NPCs emphasize actions so much that the practice is confused with the essence. So it's assumed that the actions create the aura of what it means to be real or spiritual, rather than our actions being a product of our true inner journey. So this has to do with spiritual NPCs, those in the medical industry, those who are homeless, those in your family, those who work at the market next door to you, that pothead who lives down the street, that one guy who has no leg. I'm not just talking about one group, okay? NPCs manifest in every niche of society because it's our consciousness. It's source consciousness translated into a binary form. So you don't just get a one-size-fits-all, but underlying all of these different expressions is the same separation consciousness. So there is a mimicking act by the NPCs. A third way we can tell who's an NPC. Remember, one, they can only view anything. They can only interpret reality through a binary lens of right, wrong, better, worse, positive, negative. Two, the adherence to specific actions is confused with the essence. So it's like a persona is mistaken to be the actual being, right? Whereas we know we are not a mask, we are not a persona, and we are not even what we do, right? We are everything and more, and we're nothing. And the third way we can tell, it's kind of similar to three. It's wearing yourself as a badge, as a persona. And in the realm of spirituality, wearing spirituality as a badge, or viewing it as a distinct part of reality. Whereas to us, spirituality isn't a part of life. I don't even really like this term spirituality, because how our civilization has used it is, okay, you have education, spirituality, economics, and each has its own distinct box. It's like I'm not a spiritual being. Like, I'm just a living soul. Okay. In this third dimensional matrix, it has seemed as if aiming to ascend out of here is consciously determining, yes, I shall be spiritual or I shall adhere to the spiritual path. But really, it's all encompassing. So the NPCs in the realm of awakening, or spirituality, for lack of a better term, the whole notion of spirituality is seen as distinct, right? Like, oh, well, one who is spiritual does this. Again, right, wrong, moral, immoral. It's not that you aim to be spiritual, it's that you are the infinite all, fractalized and fully embodied within what has appeared to be a limited form, but now we're breaking free. So the fourth way you can tell if somebody is an NPC is if they have not undergone a purging process, which entails a huge transformation. Meaning, the living souls, we're here to unload. We're not just here to immerse ourselves in 3D and feel comfortable here. That's not the point of our expedition into Shadowland. We're here in order so we can release everything we don't want to carry over. We can look at it, and then after we're done purging, we leave. No ifs and no buts. So it's very strange when we come across those who have not been purging, right? It's as if they have not really transformed. You'll find many NPCs are in the same spot you left them. And this is very interesting because we truly render the NPCs, meaning they don't actually have independent existence outside of our perceptions. And you'll observe this more and more. It's like you've always rendered those around you. So if one remains on loop, remains the same, has not incorporated transformative newness, transformative aspects into their lives, they are most likely an NPC. We're not here to wait for the shift. We're here to create the shift. So the living souls have unloaded their subconscious and unconscious onto the magnetic grid. So if one has not been doing this, they're not living. Then they actually are a part of the purged parts. Now, every living soul has undergone trauma. Every living soul has had breakthroughs and breakdowns. And this is common in the NPCs too. I'm not saying every NPC has just been here and totally comfortable. What I am saying is the living souls have found a way to transmute their traumas. Transmute them. The fifth way you can tell if one is an NPC is there is a rigid force behind their essence, behind their words, behind their demeanor. And this is something that can only be sensed energetically. It's like, is it about what you say? Is it about what you do? Not necessarily. That's for the NPCs. The NPCs believe that mimicking love or mimicking intelligence or mimicking what it means to be a nice person, that is an actuality. Whereas we're looking and we're striving and we shall achieve full authenticity. And that's the only way that the living souls know how to operate. So, an NPC can say the correct things, do the correct things, and from an objective left brain perspective, it's like, of course, they're exactly as they say they are. However, behind that facade, behind that mirror, is something incongruent with what you're hearing. Now, typically, you'll hear concern from NPCs. You will hear fear being what's the word? I'm blanking out. You will hear fear being reasoned with, meaning they will give you a reason to fear, and they will masquerade that fear with concern, with I'm just worried about you, with are you sure you haven't thought about this? Because that's what binary consciousness does. Binary consciousness is not centered. Binary consciousness cannot know thyself, right? The mantra for the living souls is as within, so without. The mantra for the NPCs could be as without, then it must be within, right? I wear something, I guess I am that. I have a specific job, I guess that anchors me to that specific framework. And the ironic thing about all of this is they're so entrenched within definitions because they are the defined and we are the undefinable. And again, they are us. So there's no separation. When it comes to like awakened NPCs, like those within the spiritual or truther niches, I noticed there is one, usually a fear-based perspective when it comes to the elite or the ruling class. But overall, there's like a lack of ease, like a lack of humor, a lack of true life force when talking about awakening, right? Like how many of us have found those channels or even books and ascensional messages that are just so damn dry, you know, like they feel very confined and they feel almost as if they're a part of a role that somebody wanted to play once upon a time. It's like, we're not here to play a role of the ascended being or the ascended master. You know, you'll ascend exactly when you're done, but who you are when you're done is not going to be any of these sterilized conceptualizations. So when talking about awakening and ascension, it seems to me eventually one realizes it's all about ease and creativity and that which just flows through. Like, why would I aim to, I don't know, like put on a bunch of Buddhist robes or like aim to explain what is the right path to take? What is the right-hand path? How are we going to effectively ascend? It's like, I don't know, you make your own guidelines. I am not the dictator of what is right and wrong. And that's the problem with binary consciousness. It's that when you create these polarized schematics about what is just, what is unjust, what is correct and what is incorrect, you then merge into the false concept of objectivity. You then maintain that, oh yeah, well, let's just say in the realm of like diet, okay, because this is a huge binary matrix within the matrix. Is like, is there one specific diet? Like, could I print out a day-by-day eating plan, fasting plan for everybody on this chat right now, and we'd all feel the same and feel great? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So because that cannot be eternally true, then dualism is a farce. That's the thing. If one split cannot maintain itself eternally, then dualism is temporary. Then it crumbles onto itself. So let's say a social interaction. It's like binary consciousness. It might not specifically say this outright, but how should we act around each other? What is the objective way to say hello, to move forward a conversation, to approach each other? How do you approach somebody you've never met before? How? It's like, There's no correct way. There's no incorrect way. We're going beyond good and evil. And it's beyond these definitions where freedom truly exists. It's beyond that split where true sovereignty exists. Because you submit to what's right or wrong by creating that split. And it's funny because whenever we are aiming to brand something as wholly this or wholly that with no ifs or buts in a binary context, we're actually admitting to the universe that we are not centered, that there is no center to be found in that given moment. So why not act like a living soul, right? We've all observed the masses. We've observed how binary consciousness operates. So how about moving past that and adhering to your own principles and your own definitions, which shall remain undefined? So 6, how do you know somebody is an NPC? Now, this one is not always accurate, but I notice many NPCs are offended by the mention of the idea of NPCs, of non-player characters. Many find the concept of background people to be immoral or unjust or judgmental. It's funny how projection works, right? And you could go in an endless loop. It's like if you perceive something to be offensive, then you're actually perceiving yourself to be offensive. And then in, let's say, that specific situation, how do you get out of that? Well, can you get out using a binary measurement? Can you say, okay, well, this feels kind of strange now, but I'm right, or no, but I was wrong, or but he was right. It gets so damn confusing, doesn't it? So many are triggered by the mention of NPCs, and many actually feel quite attacked by it. And of course, soulless consciousness would feel attacked because they have been animated all along by the living souls. It's like they don't have true sentience in the way we do. This is what you need to understand. We render our surroundings. Quantum physics has already told us this, and it's just like a video game. It's like, let's say you have your controller. Wherever you move your controller, that dictates where your player is rendering within that specific map in the game. But it's like, is there innate existence of a particular being, a particular NPC or landscape without my observation? No, there is not, and not without your observation either. And we have traversed so much suffering in order to get to the state where we can say, you know, you're in charge. I'm in charge. You've always been in charge. It's like you've always been the puppet master. You've always been the main character and orchestrating your surroundings. And in that way, we can now observe the universe as a completely hospitable place. What about the NPCs, though? What about my friends and family? And, you know, like, isn't it horrible that there's NPCs? Isn't it awful? Well, if you choose to take this perspective, sure. But I say soulless consciousness is funny. Binary consciousness is funny because it's so robotic. It's so reactionary, and it's so submissive that I guarantee if you haven't been laughing yet, you will soon be laughing your ass off. And I'm not saying attack others, but I am suggesting poke fun at this realm, okay? It's not evil or wrong. Make light of the NPCs. Make light of your surroundings. And if anybody in your experience approaches you with an attack or a fear-based accusation or response or some kind of binary code, it is your job to not consent. And how do you not consent? It has nothing to do with the specific words you say or the specific actions, but it's how you interpret it. It's like, are you going to maintain that binary consciousness affects you? Like, are you going to maintain that all of these dead people, they don't exist, they are not eternal, they're of the dream, they're of the construct, they shall dissolve with time? Are you going to maintain that they have power over you? Because when you don't, you take back that which you projected. Now, 7, and there's probably many, many more, but I just made a list of 7 ways to tell who's an NPC. 7, there is no true goal. There is no true purpose. Purpose is manufactured within the confines of 3D. So if you ask an NPC, what is the purpose of life? Or why are we here? Many will say, I don't know. Many will say, I'm here to be a doctor or to help people. That's a huge thing. Rarely will it be to help myself, right? Many suggest that the point of existence is to end suffering for humanity, to expose governments if you're a truther, to align with what's correct if you're spiritual, if you're a spiritual NPC. The whole point is external change is seen as the purpose, right? I'm informing you, you're here to help yourself. Not because you rise above everyone else in a hierarchical fashion. It's because if you're not here to solve yourself, who are you here to solve? And to think that you can solve anybody else's issues or traumas is to not trust in the inherent guidance of the universe. So to realize that everything is always orchestrated in perfect alignment, always, is to recognize that what is happening right now on Earth, the soulless consciousness you see, any so-called issues is, well, 1, it's an illusion, but 2, it is the perfect illusion to observe. So, soulless consciousness, especially in the humanitarian realm, will maintain we're here to help others or to guide others. I guide myself first and foremost, and then I guide others. How can you guide others if you haven't guided yourself into liberation? Is liberation achieved because you liberate others while imprisoning yourself? That's not even possible. You can only liberate yourself and then others. So the proof is in the holistic, coherent pudding when we're talking about a being. And I am not making this live stream because I want you guys to go out there and think of everybody in your life and make a list of who's living, who's an NPC. Let us not use this concept to instill paranoia, because this is nothing to be paranoid about. Let us use this concept in order to discern who we are and what we require to take back. And of course, the truth about NPCs was beautifully allegorized in the movie The Truman Show. Truman is the true man in The Truman Show. We've talked about this before. Truman is a character, a living soul existing in a sea of artificial consciousness. In the movie, he is in a domed environment, just like the firmament of our current existence, of our flat Earth. And everyone around him, his friends, his family, his coworkers, those on the street, they are all actors. They are all in on the secret that he is being displayed on a worldwide TV show. And the movie The Truman Show dictates the journey from unawareness into full sovereignty. Truman begins observing his environment. He begins watching people and how they interact with him. And there's a few glitches from the actors in the movie. In the Truman Show within the movie. And because of these glitches, kind of like the glitches we've experienced, right? The synchronicity, the Mandela effect, Truman starts the path towards moksha. He faces his deepest fears in that movie by sailing the sea right before he leaves the construct, because we are facing our shadow selves. He tests his environment by being spontaneous, right? There's a beautiful scene where his wife is trying to have him come inside because he wants to drive to Fiji. And he says, "I'm being spontaneous." And she's like, "Truman, what are you doing?" He's like, "I just thought I'd do something different, right? I thought I would break out of the time loop." That's what we're doing. It's like, oh, come on. You've been within the definition of good and evil, right and wrong, ever since you ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, banning you from paradise. Not because God banned you, but it's binary consciousness itself which split you away from your truest form. So now you're here, and just like Truman, we're looking around and we're observing. And things don't look as they were dictated to us, right? And the more you unravel yourself and become fearless, just like Truman, right? He stops abiding by the rules in the Truman Show. We take back that which we thought was lost. The love you withhold is the pain you carry. That is a law of the universe. The love you withhold is the pain you carry. Now, we have all withheld love from ourselves and thus from others. What manifested was like a pressurized environment, positive and negative squeezing us on both ends. And by the way, the magnetic field, which the toroidal field of Earth is enmeshed within, has positive and negative charge. That's why magnets attract. It's a positive and negative charge. So we're in the land of duality, and the way to exit is how we're accomplishing it right now, by merging the above and the below into the center. And by the way, the split between good versus evil actually has manifested as what we would call the artificial energy centers. The upper chakras are the good, the heavenly, the righteous. Ha ha ha. The lower chakras are the hellish, the dirty, the animalistic. Instead of being split into the 7 energy centers, we can just exist within the singularity point. And thus, we can use that up here, out here, over here. It's not just above and below, positive and negative, keeping us in check. Come on. We have received comments, haven't we, on these live streams and under the videos of those who ask, how do I know if I'm a living soul? How do I know if I'm an NPC? Right? And I find this quite funny because do you know you're eternal? Do you? It's like, it's not about how a living soul acts. It's like, I can't give you guidelines for what a living soul is. I can give you guidelines for what an NPC is and what consciousness resides underneath the fallible mask of the soulless being, because what's binary can be defined, but what is living and eternal is undefinable, right? You try to define me, I will show you each and every time that I am not existing within that definition. You brand me a particular way, I shall show you and show myself that I reside beyond the confines of good and evil, beyond the confines of definition. I barely knew you. I admit I test people. Are you honestly worth the time to listen to or not? I believe you have a lot of intelligence about you. You have your issues, but we all do. Is this experience worth your time? Is watching this worth your time? Is it up to me to decide how you should exist right now and what you should believe? You know, we're going past belief too, because belief, after all, is, let's look up the definition, an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. A belief is something that maintains truth without experience. It's like, yes, I accept that's true. I believe that. It's a belief. And of course, lie is in that word belief. So we're going beyond belief because belief resides within duality. So you have your issues. Oh, you know, come on. If the living souls didn't have our issues, we wouldn't be here. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. If this is worth your experience right now, then hallelujah. It is the end of the construct. NPCs are of this illusion. They can only perceive that of the five senses. Yes, absolutely. And this is why within the context of the New Age and the spiritual realm, there was so much focus on practices and what is required of the body. The body is an expression of spirit. It's not that the body operates spirit in the other way. So every choice you have decided to make within your body, like what you intake, how you sleep, how you move, how you walk, all of that, it seems like you have been the conductor and therefore it affects your essence, but it's opposite. It's like every present moment is preset. It's preset. So what is guiding you? Well, it's spirit, but spirit is you guiding yourself. So it's interesting. It's like you make a decision. That decision dictates how spirit would have moved you to make that decision before you made it. And of course, when we get out of the idea that time is this finite set in stone measurement, that's when we can truly get the undefinable. Do you feel the pain of others? Do I feel the pain? No. The living souls only feel the pain of themselves. You see, we have been told to be empathetic, to be compassionate, is to feel sympathy, which is oftentimes intertwined with feeling the pain of others, right? Now, I acknowledge the emotionality, the energetics of any given situation at any given point in existence, because that is how it is. You know, flow state is not a dam one builds in a river. It's like you become like water, but water doesn't have a will of its own, not because it is feeling small or insignificant. It's because by being like water, you accept that the natural flow of the universe is the natural flow of yourself. It's like you don't relinquish anything by giving up control and needing to impose your will on existence, is that you're always influenced in the correct manner. So to leave behind this idea that a will or a barrier to existence will funnel it in the correct way for you is to not agree that you're God. Ian Oliver is asking, do you still have doubts about some of your inner standings? No, I do not. No, I do not. And I can tell you this with full honesty. There's been many times I've doubted things, and I have let you guys know along the way when I had my doubts. But we're on a fast track towards Eden, and my words are Sophia's words. Her, me, one in the same. So I was asked earlier, do you feel the pain of others? I accept the pain of others. I feel the pain of myself. Others can only inspire you to feel a certain way if that was already lurking within your being. So at times, at moments, it has felt that another made you feel a way, or they invaded your consciousness, but it's the opposite. It's that they were simply acting something out so you could feel something to rise up once again. And guess what? Sometimes it has to rise up 1,000,001 times before you get the message and hear the call. So do I feel the pain of others? I accept the pain of others. I accept the pain of myself. You know, there is that dichotomy between selfish and selfless, which operates under the binary lens that tells us a good person is selfless, right? A good person aids others or must aid others. And, you know, one can truly only inspire others if they have inspired themselves. And if one wishes to resolve the pain of others, then, well, what about the pain lurking within? And this is why so many times within this experience, we've heard of teachers, of gurus, of icons who they do something in opposition to their message, or something breaks their credibility. So we're looking to be as coherent and complete as we can be. And a huge element of this is remaining centered. So reaction is never necessary. And all of us are going to get to the point where we realize reaction just equals extraction, always. It's like you can respond to things always, right? You can respond to anything with vigor and warmth and brilliance and even some softness. But to react is to feel imposed on. To react is to feel something erupt that takes you without you feeling it before it grabs you. So reaction is only possible when we're residing in that space where we observe the NPCs as the same thing as us. How do I not consent? Use the simplest way, right? The simplest path is always it's always the flowiest one. And the paradox in that is there's no wrong moves. And that's what's beautiful. It's like every desire and expression and energy in motion, emotion, these are all to be felt. These are all to be experienced. You're a fucking guru. Just narcissistic. Stop your bullshit now. Thank you so much. Yes. See what we have going on in these chats. It's actually beautiful when we can just observe these things as nothing but a pack of cards. This is the phrase that Alice uses in Alice in Wonderland. We're here to reclaim the Aurora Borealis within our collective 0 points. And just like Alice, we fell asleep in our original bodies, and we have dreamed up a Wonderland simulated experience. So what Alice was going through in Alice in Wonderland was simply a nightmarish expression of everything that she did not want to confront within her sub and unconscious. She was not pleased with her original homeland. If you remember the book or the Disney movie, she said, I don't want to read this book with you. She was talking to her sister. I want to be around talking flowers and all these wondrous things. But is it really wonderful? Not really. Alice just wants to feel centered and reassured by her external environment. However, the more she traverses Wonderland, the further and further she feels broken. She gets depressed at one point. There's a scene in the movie where she's crying and she says, now I'll never get home, right? Like I had to follow the rabbit and I had to be so curious. And she's purging. She's like, I shouldn't have done this. I made a mistake, because innately she knows it's her dream. And then, of course, her final test is going in front of the Queen of Hearts and all of her henchmen. And they aim to tell her that she stole tarts. Or in the movie, she did something wrong. And Alice realizes at the very end. She says, you're all fake. You're nothing but a pack of cards. And as soon as she realizes this and professes it, proclaiming her full divine self without any ifs or buts, that is when the dream reveals itself to be nothing but a dream. And of course, she is running and running, and then she wakes up, and by golly, she is very, very grateful to be cleansed and now be in her original homeland. And so shall we. It's like, was this really anything? In the end, it doesn't even matter, because it only matters once you're in matter. That's the beautiful thing about this experience. Once we're done, once we are at the gates of Eden, it's going to be like dirt being brushed off our shoulder. It's going to be nothing. Because endings are beginnings. Remember, it's only within dualism that there's a finite beginning and finite ending. It's like, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. Well, if anyone wishes to see the end as just the end without a beginning, then I implore them to just look at a circle. Where's the beginning? Where's the end? Who knows? Why do you even require a definition? This whole time, we're acting out of this schizophrenic collective episode. And it's very funny. Isn't this chat funny? At this point, when binary consciousness rears its head, when an NPC aims to accuse or assimilate, because the more and more you take back your divine essence, the more you can observe all the NPCs have are fear-based accusations and responses, aiming to assimilate you into a binary framework. And it's so funny because now it's like, why would you even aim to counteract a shadow? Just an extension of your subconscious. Instead of counteracting it or attacking it, why not massage it? Like, oh, you're so cute. You're a background person. You're a little binary consciousness. Aw, you can only look at things from, right? And when you nurture that, you're actually nurturing yourself. So I recommend approaching the topic of soulless beings with lightheartedness and a sense that nothing can hurt you. I think they're pretty adorable. Karma is a universal law. Well, karma is only a universal law if one is creating karma. And instead of talking about karma on the channel, we talk about cause versus effect. Karma insinuates right versus wrong. The only reason we receive certain experiences ever is because we have input another experience on that same energetic frequency. So nothing is ever lost. So anything that is of a dualistic nature or of an inauthentic nature shall always come back to you and reveal itself to be but a shadow. That's why we say you can't run, you can't hide. So karma is a universal law. Cause and effect is, but when we talk about karma, we're usually talking about samsara, about being on a wheel of birth and death in which we need to resolve ourselves and unload our weight. We've been in the waiting room. That's why we have had a weight on our shoulders. And by the way, a waiting room equals, I think it's 1440 in gematria. Somebody please correct me. Somebody on the Discord recently decoded that phrase waiting room, and it equals a 144 value. So we've been within the waiting room, and we've been patiently undergoing cause and effect or karma until we realize it's actually not necessary. We're breaking out of the karma soul recycling system. You're only recycled when you don't know thyself. And not knowing thyself is really not understanding cause and effect. It's like the input is always the output. There you go. There's the secret of the universe. It's all you. You've done all of it, and yeah, it's all your fault. But guess what? It's all your fault, right? So it's amazing. It's like if you have the power to destroy something, you have the power to correct it. If you have the power to invert something, you have the power to flip it back around. If you can break something, you can clean up the pieces, especially when we're talking about time being a very fallible, temporary construct. We're getting out of time. We're bumping up into synchronicity. And therefore, time doesn't really act on us now. We act on it until more and more the synchronicity will open up a gateway, and that gateway opens up 1221. So you should be proud of yourself. It's like you're not just receiving a gift. I mean, of course you are. You're not just being raptured by the universe. It's like you're rapturing yourself. It's like nobody takes credit for your ascension. So somebody just asked, did you just state a date, Devin? Yes, I did. And I have a feeling you are not aware that I have a larger channel with presentations called Flat Earth Paradise. So I have many videos on 1221, and I shall keep publishing insights as Sophia guides them. So yeah, if you'd like to check out some info on the 1221 date, I have a few videos on this channel, but go to Flat Earth Paradise. Do your homework. I ask everyone who is confused about any topic I've spoken of in this live stream or another live stream. I've explained this in different ways, in different capacities, and from different perspectives. So please do your homework, because I've done mine. It's interesting. Am I your projection back to you, or are you a projection of me back to myself? Well, ultimately, it all becomes the same thing, right? So the living souls ultimately are the same essence fractalized into individuated aspects of source consciousness. So it's like yes and no. You know, that's holographic multiverse's favorite answer. But I am saying indeed that those in your life who have inflicted traumas on you, those who have carried you through this experience, most of them, most if not all, are direct extensions of your sub and unconscious that have just materialized as, right, a father or a best friend or a boss at work or a mentor. Remember, everybody, let's just call these NPCs cuties. I think cutie is a great word, right? Because what contempt and division consciousness aims to do is project that very consciousness onto you. So if you want to counteract binary consciousness by taking it seriously, then you're giving into dualism, right? Because in that instance, you wish for yourself to be right and for them to be wrong. But instead of playing that game of right versus wrong, you can just say, oh, okay, well, I disagree, but that's kind of a strange response. Or that's not me. Yeah, they're just a bunch of cutie pies. They're harmless. I was talking to Karine yesterday about this. We collectively felt intimidated by this realm for most of this existence. It's like we identified others as being the same thing as us. We felt like things weren't right, but we couldn't put our finger on it. And a lot of us, we feared the judgment of others, how others would handle us. But when you wake up and realize they're literally dead, like they aren't, then it's like what was I worried about? Like it's always been a hospitable universe. It's been my own fear projected out here, which has made the masses look so intimidating. But now I implore any of you to walk into any market or street or city or mall and just just laugh. You know, there's a bunch of cutie pies all around you, and they know not what they do because they're just automated. But the NPC do play. They are hedonistic party hard peeps. Some NPCs are hedonistic. Yeah, you know, NPCs are not just one or the other. We said this earlier. They exist within all crevices and niches of society. It's not what they do. necessarily that explains to you uh, what their essence is. It's the underlying consciousness operating through those actions, through those words. Aha, very interesting. Holographic multiverse says clones are just our saved memories. Always loved your perspective. Wow. Do what you will with them. It's like a Plato's closet. For those who don't know, Plato's closet is like a secondhand boutique store. So I actually would agree with you. It's like we are remembering in reverse what it felt like to break apart and then reform into our most ideal versions. Perfectly said, yes. And it's not about beliefs either. I have a question. So are globe believers NPC? Well, it's not that if you believe in flat Earth that you're living. It's not the belief that creates the essence, you know? And I would be hard pressed to say all living souls even know about flat Earth. There's definitely living souls out there who they choose not to subscribe to a specific model, but ultimately that doesn't matter. Okay, it's the inner journey. Something like flat Earth, or even convex Earth, or the Tartarian Golden Age stuff. Everything under the sun within the conspiracy or truther realm, it's all here to act as breadcrumbs to lead us to our own inner truth. It's not so we can convince others of something or so we can maintain this to be eternal. It's like, at this point, is the Earth flat? The Earth is a holographic, dualistic, purgatorial projection. So when we measure it, is it flat? Yeah. Is it easiest to conceptualize it as flat because the center is the hard space? Absolutely. Devin, I could have sworn your name was Devon, or Devin spelled with an O. Did you change it? I've had a few people who have accused me of having like a Mandela effect. Even as far as 2 years ago, people were claiming that my last name added a D to it, or like my name was O. And my name has always been Devin Maggi with an I. So perhaps we've been experiencing a lot of glitches. Karine and I experienced something very, very interesting this morning. Oh, you guys have to hear this. We were going to pick up some coconuts, and we were driving on our way back, and we were listening to a song, and we were singing it, and we were holding each other's hands, and we were also expressing gratitude. And we were so immersed in the moment that we didn't really, like, for a split moment, we stopped paying attention to the road and to our physical surroundings. For a split second, we resided within this bubble of affection and gratitude and love. All of a sudden, a car pulls in front of me, 10 feet in front of me, as if it wanted to hit me. So obviously we're protected. So I was so close. I just missed this car. And at first I said, is this car trying to hurt us? Like, what just happened? There's only two possibilities, because this car was waiting to turn in. It waited for the car in front of me to pass, and yet it turned as if it was about to crash into me. There's only two possibilities. One, it was trying to crash into me, or it was trying to crash itself, which that's not likely. Or two, Karine and I produced so much ease energy, so much creative and heart-based energy between us. And we were ignoring the road, so much so that for a split second, we left the realm. And when we were put back, it's almost as if that car didn't see us. That according to that car, we were invisible. Because I'd be hard pressed to, even an old person, to turn in a car going 55 miles per hour, 10 feet away. And so we chilled out. And then I turned to her. I said, what were we doing before that happened? And then we realized, it's like, oh, wow, we were holding each other's hands and expressing gratitude and singing. And all of that art of the heart must have created a rip in time and space. And it's like we flashed in and out. Very curious. And more of this will probably be happening. Recently, one of our sisters, Ms. Maxine, had an object appear at her desk. Maxine, you can write more about it if you wish, but we talked about purgatory being a waiting room in one of the last live streams, and then that day, what manifested at her desk was some kind of object, and in letters, it said waiting room on it. So an object appeared. Karine and I momentarily, apparently, became invisible. And this is what singularity does. More and more, it brings you further and further from the confines of what we call 3D. So what we see as miracles or strange happenings or these synchronicities, they're really the breadcrumbs showing you out of the matrix. Do you think most celebrities are NPCs? Yes. Celebrities, politicians, right? All the world's a stage, and all the people just players. Yeah, on the political stage, the Hollywood stage, the media stage, in the realm of sports. Anybody who has taken an opportunity to fully immerse themselves in this matrix as if that's all there exists is an NPC. We're talking about those who have built empires, those who have built companies, those who, they only observe the earth. There's no prospect that there's anything outside of here, or if there is, it's always some conceptualized psychobabble, like heaven, or maybe when you die there's another side, or it's always ambiguous. It's like the living souls don't need to question if this is all there is. We've known this isn't all there is, therefore we have not fully intertwined ourselves here as if it's all there is, right? And of course, all of us have had jobs, and you have to do what you got to do when you're in the Metatronic overlay. But our empire exists outside of time, and our empire does not require currently like any structures, any rudimentary sensual experiences necessarily. We're all online. This is an etheric process. This is you tapping into the ether. Every time you comment on YouTube or in this live stream, input anything onto the internet, or even make a video, that is a spell that you are inputting into the ether. Remember, the internet was originally called the Ethernet, and then that is sent back to you. So that's our empire. It's like we're building it without using our hands, because our technology is right here. This is the greatest technology ever. 1 hour, 14 minutes, 44 seconds. We have the singularity point built within. And I absolutely would agree, Mr. Brenton. Yeah, the NPCs are following a script. Yes, they can't break out of the script. Whereas we're not bound to any scripts. You know, you write your own reality just as much as it writes you. Why doesn't Karine upload to her YouTube channel? Ha 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 ha. Well, it's all her choice, but I agree, Karine. You are doing exactly what you need to on your journey. And this is not the end, guys. Keep in mind, this is a fresh beginning. We have been so ecstatic because we've been saying to each other, it's like, it's the end, but it's also a new beginning. Like, we're just getting started. As holographic multiverse commonly says, you know, we come here to rest. We come here to rest our full manifestation powers. So when we return to Hyperborea, we're not just going to be lying around like, of course, there's plenty of pleasantries within and without yourself always to be experienced, but you're going to want to create. So, you know, like, where's all the living souls? Like, where's all, I don't know, where's all the videos? Where's all the songs and the movies? And oh, we have plenty of energy to create with and plenty of time, because we're going to be out of time, basically creating our own time vortexes within a, I guess what we'd call a 5-dimensional space. Mr. David, I have been quite busy lately. Thank you for directing me to your most recent email. I will take a look at that, man. Yeah. I appreciate all of your words and anything any of you email me. If you ignore an NPC, they stop existing. Beautifully said. Yes, because we render their existence. And this is why if you cut contact with one, as many have, and then you revisit them 9 out of 10 times, it's almost as if you just put them on the shelf and you pick them up right where they left off. And sure, maybe they look a little older, maybe they have a different job or a promotion or something, but that's really the only change that an NPC experiences, right? Like when somebody asks you, hey, how are you doing? You know, how are things going? An NPC wants to explain, oh yeah, I got a promotion, or my job is well, you know, the kids are doing good, and all of that is fine and dandy. I'm sure you guys explain this all the time, but what about the inner journey? It's like, I wish to know what's behind the mask. How are you feeling? And of course, because all we have is masks, just charades. That's what the NPCs are. They're just charades. We don't find depth. We find a replication of depth, a mimicking of depth. And you even see this in movies. It's like, I do watch movies and TV shows mostly for videos because there's tons of truth out there. But oftentimes there will be archetypes which are quite archaic in the living soul's perception, because it's like, well, is that how romance is expressed? Romance is typically advertised as attachment, or eating is advertised as like a carnal pleasure that weighs you down, or you know, in movies, bosses are always seen as intimidating. You know, so there's all of these illusory false archetypes, and at a certain point, you strip one illusion and you're like, oh wait, I feel less ill, because illusion makes you ill. So you strip away one and you're like, okay, I feel a little bit healed, you know, mentally, physically, whatever. And that's what we've done. It's like, okay, well, I just want to feel healthy. I just want to feel healed. And feeling healed corresponds with having enough energy. That has been one of my biggest complaints in this matrix. It's like I don't feel like I have the energy I want to, right? I have to sleep. I have to deal with the limitations of this realm, of this overlay. And the reason any of us have felt a deficit in energy is due to the fact that your energy was extracted and it was all on the grid. And for a lot of us, yeah, there's still fragmented parts of ourselves. If there wasn't, you wouldn't be here. So when the singularity hits, everything shall fold back into you. It all unfolded out of you anyways. So what shall we experience? Well, what's this going to look like sensually? It doesn't matter, because the projections are just going to be reincorporated. It's going to be like a card house just falling down ever so smoothly into the heart space. Mr. Astral Being. That's true. I haven't come in contact with any of my old friends since I stopped thinking about them. Yes, it's very interesting, right? It's like when you cut contact with NPCs and when you kind of banish them, even temporarily, right? You don't call them or you don't text them. There's a standstill in that relationship, right? And why is it? Because you were powering it the entire time. I think that all artists are living souls. Do you agree? Not necessarily, no. Because art is innate to experience. Because art is innate to experience, we will always be surrounded by it. When we're talking about the songs and the movies that have had hidden in plain sight clues, right? The TV shows, even the commercials, we're talking about emanations from a Sophianic presence, from Sophia. So the great mother herself has emanated art all around us. Because when we're not in the heart, we still require some art of the heart in order to guide us through this experience. So you've had many songs, many movies, many characters in shows that you personally connected with, that you felt like were a part of you, right? I've had many bands who I was obsessed with at one point in time, or many artists or musicians whom at that particular time, it's like their songs infused me with the very messages, the very vibrancy, or even lack of vibrancy that would help grow my consciousness. So we don't just grow through Sophia's inner guidance that she funnels through us. We grow through everything that's been placed in our environment. It's the art, it's the NPCs. And sure, the NPCs can create art. Why can't they? I created art in many binary parts of my life when all I could see was good and evil. You see, and art can be earthly. That's the thing. The NPCs accomplish earthly pursuits, and there's many earthly pursuits, one of which is physical instruments and you know, learning how to play them. But what you'll notice in a lot of artwork, if you haven't already, is that there is a machine that kind of replicates songs as if it's written by the same person, or it's of the same, and yet it's by a different artist. right? So the living souls don't wish to replicate. We wish to be transformed through each and every piece of art, piece of consciousness manifested as an NPC in our environment, and this is why we always say in this conversation of NPCs, and an NPC isn't just like somebody who walks to Starbucks in a suit and says, "Good morning, I would like a mocha latte." Like, come on now. Even your shadows are more colorful than that. But the more you reincorporate your shadows, the more you are seeing. There is a blending of the NPCs. Mr. Ian Oliver. Devin, is our energy allocated so much into rendering the matrix that our ability to manifest is limited? And by choosing to take back the energy, so the ability to manifest returns. Bingo! Bingo! Yeah, our manifestation powers only seem limited because they're seemingly pushed into the external, waiting for our integration. So once it's in the external, that's still your consciousness. So even going back to the question, aren't all artists not NPCs? It's like, well, you've projected many parts of yourself out here, so that's still creative energy. And that's what you're taking back. You're taking back creative energy. And what do you have left? You got a bunch of ones and zeros. Once again, every day, every hour, every moment, we are exponentially taking ourselves back. And just look at their eyes. This is another aspect of the NPCs. It's appearance. And it doesn't have to do with hair length. It doesn't have to do with skin color. It doesn't have to do with weight. It doesn't have to do with bone placement necessarily. It's the whole being. The eyes are the windows to the soul, though. So the eyes tell you so much about somebody's depth or lack of depth. And more as we are recognizing the I am, we take the I from the other, right? We reincorporate it, and what do we have left? Eyes that are just empty, right? Empty eyes. The eyes are the windows to the soul. So what do you see, right? Your intuition is always correct. That's the point of intuition. It's gnosis without reason. And there is kind of a synthetic appearance, I've noticed, to the NPCs. And once again, it's nothing you could pinpoint or describe. The question is, does that look eternal or temporary? Does that feel eternal or temporary? The voice is also a great indicator. It's like the logos is the truth. It is through the word that I cultivate wisdom. I don't know about you, maybe, but it's through expression, and the word is a part of expression. So the voice behind the word always trumps the word, right? It's like if I just took a random NPC from off the street, I gave them the script of this live stream and told them to recite it, would that work? Would it? They're saying all the correct things. Absolutely not, because once again, and we talked about this earlier, there is an incongruency to what you see and what you feel. It's like I see a person, I don't sense a person. Not because I want to be right, not because I want to demean this person, but because everything in me says, you aren't. And again, this empowers us. This empowers us. One of the greatest questions within this conversation is, does this disempower us? Is this an evil concept? Is this a bad concept? Isn't this so divisive? Well, you choose and you do you, honey boo. But I'll maintain I'm living, I'm not dead. Unless you proclaimed yourself to be living and fully sovereign, I'll assume you to be just a background character. And ultimately, it's not my job to determine who you are. That's the point. And that's the point of speaking of NPCs. If you know the inner self, and you know that healing is innate to that inner self, then you'll have no worries about a specific thought or inclination to be wrong or immoral. And we talked about karma earlier. Karma is self-inflicted wounds onto yourself that results from the split between good and evil. Because an effect doesn't happen unless you feel like you deserve that effect, right? So that's why the perception is the reality. It's that, well, I did something completely wrong. It's like, well, you did. Oh, you must have, because that is your perception. So only you can correct that. And if it feels like your input has disrupted the coherence of the universe, then guess what? It's disrupted the coherence of yourself, of the universe. If living souls have passed recently, while the end of the construct is near, would they bother reincarnating? No living soul is dying. We are out of death. One only dies if they have to kill something within their own being. You only roll the die and die on the wheel of samsara when you don't know who you are. Because we know who we are now, we're done with death. And it's not a matter of, but what if you die? It's a matter of, I don't die because I'm killing that which I need to kill actively. And I'm not letting what seems like death eat me before I eat it. And there's a song that was playing when Karine and I went into a store yesterday. It was, I don't have to die to feel alive, right? So we're done with reincarnation. And remember, any ifs or buts stems from a lack of trust within yourself. It's not a lack of trust within the universe. It's a lack of trust within yourself. It's the same damn thing. So if there's even an inkling of like, well, what if I don't ascend? What if I don't pass these tests? Then that means there must be something within that feels you need to integrate or let go of in order to get to that state where you can confidently say, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Let's just sit tight and allow the plasma event to unfold. How do NPCs give birth to living souls? Great question. So this is actually one of the biggest questions, is that, well, can a living soul only be birthed by a living soul? There's this narrative that the mother has to be a living soul to conceive a living soul. And this is not the case. This is absolutely not the case. Remember, the living souls, let's put a timeline as a visual. The living souls, we hopped off of the train of Eden. We hopped off of the heart, out of paradise. Therefore, we projected this space as like a clock. And we've been spinning round and round, right? The sun and moon spins round and round, and we've been loading, right? It's like a loading bar. We've been loading. So you're born, you die. You're born, you die. You're born, you die. And all of this, it's irrelevant now, but it's been an automated process to get us to where we are here. So at one point, we were automations. More binary mechanical automations. And if you can visualize it, the more lifetimes we've lived, the more NPCs we projected onto the grid. That's perhaps the reason why there's more and more people on the earth. And then at some point, we transcend the wheel of samsara, and that is during our last birth. But given that 99.9% of beings here are non-player characters, you'd need living souls to be birthed by NPCs. It's absolutely possible. In fact, I would say most of our parents, they are non-player characters. And they're extensions of our minds. And remember, it's not a linear process that anything operates on ever. It has only seemed linear because you're in Maya. You can only you can only perceive 0.001% of the visible, or of the electromagnetic spectrum. That's the visible light spectrum. So are you actually witnessing the full scope of what's happening here? Absolutely not. You can feel all of the energetic tugs and pulls, but when it comes to your five senses, you can't be so sure where something begins and ends. And that's where it can get confusing if we wish to adhere to only linear processes. So it seems like, okay, well, you're a living soul breaking free, so that would mean it would need to begin with a living soul who births that being. Not the case. You're that powerful that you can project parents before existing within a physical body. And if everything is present, which it is, that means it's all been ordained already. And I've even met living souls who are aware that their children are NPCs. I've gotten many emails and comments of people who say, yeah, I have a few kids. Two of them are NPCs. One is living. Or, all of them are NPCs. And it is what it is. Remember, it's not us aiming to draw lines into existence and say this is how it is. It's that, well, binary consciousness is binary and it's all around us. So can it come from us? Well, it's always came from us. So of course we can birth binary consciousness. There's guiding vessels of wisdom all around us. Our parents, art, television, these YouTube channels. Talk about the cosmic egg. I will not talk about the cosmic egg. I think you're talking about Martin Kenny's cosmic egg, and Martin Kenny and I are we're having some funny exchanges now. He's a little cutie, isn't he, Mr. Martin Kenny? So no, let's not talk about the cosmic egg. Let's not talk about flat Earth either. Let's just be true without aiming to adhere to the dogmas of specific models, shall we? We're all about the center. Do I ever talk about the fucking outer lands, cosmic egg, like Mercury, Mars, what they're absolutely not. We have internal battle and they do not. They have no higher self to argue with. The lower self, this is why they seem so confident in their decisions. Beautifully said. Oh my goodness. Ms. Donna, that was so well said. Great insight. I want to say that again. The living souls have an internal battle and the NPCs do not. They have no higher self to argue with the lower self. That is why they seem so confident in their decisions. Yes, absolutely. Our process is inner, theirs is outer. And we have a Hyperborean form that's been funneling all of this wisdom. That's what I mean when I say spirit, it guides you. It's like the living souls, we're multi-dimensional. We don't only exist here, we exist there, and ultimately we are everything when it comes to that singularity point. And the NPCs typically do seem very, very confident in their assertions, especially like their beliefs, right? Their spiritual assertions, their political assertions, almost as if that if they repeat it enough, right? If they say something so many times that it will make it true. But that's only us, okay? If we repeat something over and over again, it's true because we are the magic. So it's funny that the NPCs, they aim to mimic and replicate something they don't have, and it's a charade. And this is why many times I've experienced, I've been in public, and every time now I observe keenly, looking at all of these cuties, and typically I'll get a glare, like a paranoid stare, kind of like that. Almost as if, like, or like, I'm yours, right? Like you're automating me. I'm sure some of you have experienced that too. It's like they're exposed. Once again, I do implore you guys to go in public. I know a lot of us are hermits, but come on now. Do some people watching and you will observe exactly what I'm saying. Just watch without judgment. Remember, I'm not saying go there and judge them and call them incorrect or horrible. Just watch and you'll see their fallible selves start to squirm, start to dissolve at the core. Because it's always been you. And yes, by the end of this timeline, they all are going to be acting, if you don't observe it yet, like a bunch of automated drones. Can we talk about ragtime? Oh, yeah. I wrote a ragtime song once. Let me play it. It's called Soften Up My Spine. I love ragtime. Who wants to start a ragtime band in Hyperborea? This song's from 2011? No, 2014. I'll be right back.
Hit the ground, squash this steady set off, put sock with tied shoes, talking in. I'm a bona fide brand of counterfeit. Hit the ground, yeah, lay loose dead. Make a chow and break it up and sweat. You got a sweetness that ain't controlled yet. Soften up my spine, yeah. I'm not just a disposer, I need to take closer. I beg you to come over right here. I'm the composer, I need to feel the motion, and I just want the ocean to get real. She thinks I got a motive, but I don't really own it. I beg you to come over right here. I play it so corrosive, but she don't really know it. Do you want love or do you want fear? Hit the ground, squash the steady set off with sucker with tied shoes, talking in. I'm a bona fide brand of counterfeit.
All right, got some coconut water. $12:21, that's the day that we go home. Astral Being has a really good song on 12:21. For those who haven't heard it, go to Astral Being channel. I always have that song stuck in my head. Yeah, you already know. 12/21, that's the day that we go home. Interesting. Okay, I just searched 12/21, and I guess there's an AFI song called Prelude 12/21. I've never heard it before. Maybe it has some secrets. Interesting. And the album is called December Underground. Wait a minute. AFI had that one song about December, didn't they? Love Like Winter. Yeah, I think I'm going to check out that album. I'm pretty sure there's some hidden meanings there. AFI means a fire inside. Yes, the fire of the hearts inside. Prelude 12/21. There's got to be something there. Oh my goodness. And the album cover of this particular album called December Underground, it has AFI surrounded by 3 black rabbits. You know, the rabbit we talk about signifying time. Some people say signifies Inanna, who is a different version of Sophia. And of course, we're in the womb of Sophia. And like the rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, we followed time. Like we buried ourselves in time down the rabbit hole onto the checkerboard. So it is 9:11 here. I think it's a good time to end the stream. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the stream about NPCs. Keep up the great work. We are so very close. You shall all experience many glitches, many synchronicities, and many strange happenings, but more and more they shall be experienced not as being imposed on you, but being created through you. So enjoy yourselves. Keep up the great work. We'll talk soon.